One other that I wanted to mention and failed to earlier, Tim Smith's wife had surgery this morning, and she's on a ventilator at this time and an ICU unit, so be remembering her in your prayers as well. Our speaker this hour is Brother Paul Vaughn. He has the subject of lying. We've been talking about those individuals. Terry had suicide because everybody wants him to do that, and I mean, or maybe just his mouth, and that way it'd be all right. Now, what this says about Paul, well, he has that subject of lying. He and his wife Ricky have been preaching at the Hallsville congregation in Hallsville, Kentucky, since the establishment of that congregation in 2000. Been doing an excellent work there, and the congregation has grown and is developing. He has done that type of work, though, and going into mission fields in Kentucky and Ohio throughout his preaching career, and helping to establish congregations along that line. He has done some writing as far as the lesson commentaries on Hebrews and Daniel. And I think both of those are on our CD, so books on CD, so if you get that, you get those books as well. Luke also. It's not on here, so if it's not on here, you didn't do it. But he says Luke also. He has written a great deal on restoration history, and know that he's going to do an excellent job in relationship to this subject on lying. And Elward, if you'll pull down the screen as well.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I look forward to seeing the good brethren at Bellview. Ricky and I think a lot of you, we've been coming down here for years, many years before I was ever a speaker on the lectureship. And as far as Michael's remarks, I got it. You don't have that. Oh, okay. Okay. As far as Michael's remarks on the subject of lying, when I first got this title, I first thought I could just divide it up into 4 sections. You lie on your right side, you lie on your left side, you lie on your stomach, and you lie on your back. And let it go with that. And I called him, and I thought of a way to think of that. And he said, well, that's not exactly what I got in mind. We're just teasing. Isn't it good that we can come together and tease and smile, at least from time to time? If I asked you to write down all the blessings that God has given you, certainly you could say, well, the blessing of knowing God in the Scriptures is a great blessing. The blessings of Jesus Christ coming and dying on a cross for our sin is a great blessing. The blessing of your family, your home, your children, your grandchildren. But have you ever thought about truth as a blessing? Isn't it wonderful that we can attain truth? Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And that's a wonderful blessing. That I can know the objective standard for salvation. I can know the standard to live as a Christian. I can know the standard that God expects of me to go to heaven. Truth, it's a wonderful thing. Now, if you decide today, and let's say the bank you deal at is here in Pensacola, if it is, I pray for you. And I'll use this in Stilling because coming to Florida, our bank says if you're going to Florida, let us know, because if you use your ATM card in Florida, we're going to cancel it. That's how bad Florida has a reputation nowadays for stealing. And I'll fill that in more tomorrow. But if you go to the bank and you have to tell her, well, what do I have in my checking account? Do you want truth or a lie? Would you be satisfied if she said, well, I don't know, but you probably got enough? Or if she saw you got 3,000, she says, well, you got 300. And you knew you had 3,000. Are you going to satisfy with that? Or are you going to accept that? Are you going to accept that from the bank? Certainly truth is a very precious commodity. And when we think about truth, and the opposite of that is lying. For you see, today, we are seeing the death of truth in our society. That truth itself is becoming vanishing. We want truth when it comes to the bank. We want truth if we go to the doctor and we're getting an exam and the doctor comes in and sits down and he says, well, you want the truth or a lie? Well, I want the truth. But yet when it comes to religion, people generally want the lie. They're not looking for the objective standard that we can read about in the New Testament for Christians today. Well, just tell us what we teach and how we feel is correct. And thus we see the death of truth in our society. That truth in many ways is becoming a vanishing thing. Abraham Lincoln said, no man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. And certainly that's a pretty powerful statement in itself, isn't it? And if you think about that and the truth behind that statement, that those who are liars, it's easy to find them out because their words will trip them up. Lying has become a way of life for many people. In other words, that's just their lifestyle. You expect it. And I dare say, knowing human beings, that probably every one of us has someone in our family or in our acquaintance that we know that just simply like to lie. And you just don't trust anything they say. And you would not want to count on anything they say. Well, lying has become so popular, there are different categories of lies. Well, there's the white lie. In other words, this is where someone's going to lie because they're afraid they're going to offend you. That's a white lie. When we lived in Jackson, Kentucky, Rick and I had a house on Picnic Hill, and this man and this woman moved in next to us, and the first thing she did was paint the house. Well, it was the ugliest color I'd ever seen. I mean, that house, after she painted it, it took the value of our house down. I mean, that's how ugly that thing was. And she came over and she said, well, how do you like my house, the way I painted it? Well, she's going to get the truth, but I'm going to be tactful with it. And I first said, does it really matter what I think about your house? I say, you bought it, you paid for it, you painted it. She says, you don't like it, do you? And I said, no, man, that's ugly. Well, next week she painted it a more sensible color. She went through and painted that whole house again. And I'm thankful, and I think our other neighbors are glad she painted that house again. Well, that's a white lie. Well, there are half-truths. There's an insurance company today that advertises on television, and they take Honest Abe. And he's there with his wife, and they have this woman that looks pretty much like Abraham Lincoln's wife, at least the pictures you see of her in the books. And she's got this black dress on, and this is the type of dress that she's pictured in. And she's got this dress on, she's doing this, and she says, Abe, does this dress make me look fat? Have you ever seen a picture of Abraham Lincoln's wife? She's a very, shall we say, healthy woman at her time in history. And Abe goes, well, maybe a little bit. Well, she wasn't a little bit heavy. That's a half-truth. And then there are pathological liars, sociopathic liars, and these are liars that are so bad that they become diseased in their lying. They become evil. Well, all lying is evil, but they come to the point of harming people and enjoy harming people with their lies. But ultimately, making any type of distinction may not be useful because the outcome is going to be the same. When Michael gave me this topic, well, I thought about getting into the ethical arguments that could be put forth. Is it ever okay to lie? What if someone's life is in danger and things like this? Is it okay to lie? Is God going to accept that lie? Well, the Bible tells me all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire, and the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Revelation 21 and verse 8. And that's the only thing I can go by. So it doesn't make any difference if it's a white lie, if it's a half-truth, if it's a pathological liar or a sociopathic liar, that all liars will have their part in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. Well, there are masks that people wear today when it comes to lying. And they wear these masks to disguise their lies, to disguise their emotions, to disguise their heart, to disguise the truth. In fact, people lie to their family. And in most families, they got someone's going to lie to them. And they want to know where the children get their idea of lying. We had some people at a church, I'm going to tell you where. This is where I was living and preaching. And this little kid come in just cussing up a storm. And the mother says, well, I don't know where he got that. Well, I know where he got it. He got it from mom or dad, one or the other. That's all there is to it. Well, people lie to their family. People lie to their friends in our society. They put on a mask and they look their friends right in the eye and they lie for any number, thousands of reasons. And we don't have time to get into all of that. Well, wives lie to their husbands. You know. And then husbands lie to their wives. Oh, yes, you look awful nice. You look like that dress. You've lost 20 pounds just wearing that dress. You know. I'm not talking about being cruel or mean or insensitive in any way. I'm not talking about that. But that's just the way it is. That's just become part of life for a lot of people. Parents lie to children. And once they do that, and by the way, children are not stupid, and they find their parents in a lie, they're going to raise little liars. They're going to follow the example of mom and dad, or mama and papa, or grandma and grandpa, however you want to call it. They're going to follow what they've been taught. And we lie to our employers. When I was in Jackson, or Hazard, there was my head cashier, or she might have been my assistant head cashier, I can't remember. She came in one day and her face was swollen, she had a black eye, and her nose was broken, and she was bruised from here all the way around. And she asked not to be put on the registers that day, and I was more than happy to help her not be on the registers those few days until she the bruises went away. And she didn't want to admit what happened, but she would say, well, my baby hit me with a bottle. That he had the bottle and hit me and did this. Well, I knew she was lying to me. It was her husband. It was her husband. He was cruel to her. And that was obvious from the way they act when they were in the store shopping. But nevertheless, people lie to their employers, and we'll get more detail on that a little later on. We lie to government. You ever cheat on your taxes? I hope you haven't. I hope you haven't. I hate paying taxes. But you know God establishes government, and the government, though our government does a lot of bad things, they do some good things. And our soldiers, I think, are some of the good things. When I say soldiers, the military itself, they protect us. And those boys and those girls need to be paid. And it comes through our taxes. It comes through our taxes. Well, people lie to self, and perhaps this is a very dangerous thing when we get into lying to ourselves, that we don't get an accurate picture of ourselves. And as long as we are consistent in lying to ourselves, will not do anything about the problems that each one of us have to overcome, have to change. How can I change if I keep constantly lying to myself that I don't need to change? And that happens a lot today, and too often in many congregations and institutions around in the church today. It's easy to lie to ourselves, and then people lie to God. We lie to God when we tell God that we love Him, and we take more time to prepare to go to Walmart than we do to prepare to come to worship. We lie to God when we sing songs that would compel us to do evangelism, like Send the Light, and we're not interested in sending the light. We lie to God when we sing Holy, 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 and we just treat Him as some flippant source way off out in the universe that doesn't know us, doesn't see us. So people can lie to God in a lot of ways. We can lie to God in our prayers. We can lie to God in our singing. We can lie to God in our actions. Lying. Well, using abstractions to obscure the truth. Now, none of this is in the book, so you might want to listen to this. I like to throw in some things that I didn't, just to be a little bit different. There are low levels of distractions. Well, a red apple. In other words, if I see Michael, I said, Michael, what's that you got there in your hand? I can't see it good. He said, well, it's a red apple. Well, that's pretty well a low level of distraction, isn't it? Reading email. What are you doing? I'm reading email. That's a low level of distraction. Well, running 5 miles. Watching sports. Reading a paper. Daydreaming. High level of distraction, fruiting. Well, let's say Michael's got his apple and he doesn't want me to know that it's a red apple because Karen told Michael not to eat any apples that it give him bad breath. Now, that's just an illustration. Apples don't give him bad breath. But he likes apples. He's going to eat those apples no matter what. And he doesn't want anybody to tell Karen that he's eating an apple. He says, oh, I'm just eating some fruit. See the abstraction? The high level abstraction? How about if you're at work and you're at the computer and the boss comes back and you say, well, I'm working hard. And you're reading your emails. You see. Or I'm just exercising. I'm relaxing instead of watching sports. The wife says, well, you need to get out and mow the yard, but I need to relax. You know, instead you want to watch the ball game that's on TV. And then there's studying. Now, I can't go out right now. I'm studying. I'm just reading the newspaper. Now, this is the biggie, and I thought this was the most important biggie right here, being it's right after lunch. And by the way, ladies, lunch was really good. I appreciate your effort that you went through to do that. Meditating. Meditating. When I was in school, I'd go up to Cumberland, Kentucky about every 3 weeks and preach. And one of the leaders in the congregation, he sat there about where Brother Brantley is. And he would sit there he had a pretty good sized stomach. He sat there, he just give that. You know, well, after about 3 times up there, and I said, do you have to work late at night or anything? And he said, oh, no, I'm not asleep. I'm just meditating. So I'm assuming everybody that's just had lunch and you're tired and you just give it that you're just meditating and not going to sleep on me. So we give you the benefit of the doubt. Well, look at high level of distractions. When people are speaking at a low level of distraction, others have a fairly good idea of what's going on. In other words, precise. You know, we've become so part today in our society that we can be so vague in what we say that people don't have any idea what we're talking about. A high level of distraction obscures the truth. People often use abstract language when trying to conceal the truth from others. You see, all of this comes down to telling the truth and the way people lie. Using abstract language is still a lie. Well, what does the Bible? Lying is condemned in the Bible. What does the Bible say about lying in the Old Testament? Let the lying lips be put to silence, which speak insolent things proudly and contemptuously against the righteous. Psalm 31 and verse 18. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are His delight. Do you kind of get the idea that from these two verses that God really does not like lying? He does not care for lying. He does not accept lying. And you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, Exodus chapter 20 and verse 16. Though the word lie is not used there, it certainly is in the teaching. In the New Testament, do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds. Colossians chapter 3 and verse 9. In other words, you become a Christian. You're a new man. You're not that old man practicing sin. You're not that old man living like the world. You're the new man who is living to please God, living to lead your family to God, living to lead others to God. Therefore, you're not going to lie. Therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 25. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the sexually immoral, fornicators is a better translation, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. In other words, God has a place for those who lie. Now, if we think about lying, and we look at the history of the church, and I like history, I really do, and I feel like we can learn a lot from history. Well, if you want to see the history of the church, just read the book of Acts. Just study that subject. The first major issue from within the church was lying. It was lying along with pride and some other things, but lying is addressed. First, they worked daily in one accord with each other. Acts chapter 2 and verse 46. If you want to see the way Christianity is supposed to be, just study Acts chapter 2 very closely. For after those 3,000 were added to the church, after those who heard Peter and the apostles preach on Pentecost, they worked daily in one accord. They were in agreement. They were wanting to please God. They were wanting to advance the cause of Christ. The church was growing. The church was growing. They were willing to give of their prosperity to help other Christians grow and mature in the Lord. Acts chapter 4, verse 34 to 37. And I'll just paraphrase this. That members of the church sold properties and they gave the money to the church to use. And then one of them, Barnabas, sold a piece of land and he gave money to the church to use. But what happened? There's a couple, Ananias and Sapphira. They evidently saw the accolades that were laid upon Barnabas and the others, and they wanted to look just as zealous as Barnabas and the others. And so they sold a piece of property. Sin soon brought problems to the young church. It was lying that spoiled the unity of the church. And Ananias brought this money and he gave it to Peter. And Peter says, how much did you get for it? Just paraphrase it, and this is it. And then Peter says, why do you think you can get away with lying to God? You see, that's the problem. There's a lot in the church that think they can get away with lying to God. And there's no getting away with any lies. Ananias learned the hard way, but God's not striking people down dead today for lying. He's not doing that. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why we have more liars today. I guarantee you, if there would be some Ananiases today dropped down dead for lying, there would be a whole lot less lying going on. Well, they took Ananias out and buried him. His wife came in a little bit later. And Peter says, well, what did you get for your property? And is this much? He says, yes. And Peter said, well, see the feet of these men? They buried your husband, they're going to bury you. Now that was a miracle that you don't see the false prophets trying to copy today, do you? You know, if you think about that, was a miracle used in a negative sense. Not bringing someone to life, but actually condemning them to death physically, you see. But the unity of the church was hurt, but yet after the church handled it, the church grew again. Until the next problem came up, till the next issue came about. We think about Satan is the father of liars. In other words, if a person likes to lie, his father is the devil. In fact, Jesus has something to say about that to the Jews. He says, you are of your father the devil. He was a liar from the very beginning. You see. Well, Satan, he is the originator of all that is evil, and he spoke the first lie. Turn to Genesis, if you would, in chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, it says, now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, and said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, well, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. Not only is that the first lie, but he is accusing God of being a liar. When God said that you're going to die if you eat of it, he says, well, no, you're not. Well, who did Eve believe? When you think about that, Eve believed the lie. Now why is it that people can believe any outlandish lie and accept it as truth, and the simplicity of the truth they just can't see? We're going to deal with that a little bit more. Well, the consequences were devastating to the first family. Eve's actions denied the truthfulness of God. Yet the actions of the majority of the people today deny the truthfulness of God. In fact, all you have to do is to look at any community. Doesn't make any difference if it's an affluent community or if it is an impoverished community. Most people deny the truthfulness of God. Well, people deny the truth when it comes to the creation of the world. In the beginning, God created. Now, your evolutionists, whether they be theistic evolutionists or atheistic evolutionists, doesn't make any difference to me. They're both the same. They deny God. The evolutionists say, well, somewhere in eons in time, there was a big bang, and out of this big bang, some slime was formed, and out of this slime came a little one-celled creature, and that little one-celled creature lived for thousands of years, and it subdivided and divided, and then finally it became a fish, and the fish was swimming in the ocean, and then one day one of those fish decided to take a walk and got out on the shore and was walking around, and it'd come back and forth, walk from the water to the land, to the water to the land, until it started liking the land more, and it didn't go back to the water, and then from there evolved the lower animals, and from that evolved a monkey, and from the monkey evolved man. And people jump on that, preach it on, brother, that's the truth. You know, it takes a lot more faith to believe that than just simply believe in the beginning God created. And I started to ask Michael and the elders if I could bring my gun in here and set it on the pulpit and unload it and ask for that gun to make a bang, what has to happen? You know, for a gun to make a bang, what has to happen? Somebody has to pull the trigger. Before they pull the trigger, first they have to get the gun. Then they have to make the shells. Then they have to load the gun. And then they pull the trigger. Can you see the fallacy in the Big Bang Theory? You know, it's error. It's a lie. But most people believe that. They prefer to believe the lie than to believe the simple truth of creation itself. Well, the one church. Jesus said, I'll build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And it's very easily seen. And to me, one of the most refreshing things about New Testament Christianity, that you can actually see the pattern for the church that Jesus built. You can see where churches, Corinthian church, as Brother McCliff talked about the Corinthianizing in that society, where they would sin, and the apostles by inspiration would straighten them out. But at that time the Bible wasn't complete. And yet today, well, just attend the church of your choice. It's even come to the point that the church is not important. Yet the Bible tells me that Christ loved the church, that He gave Himself for it. Acts chapter 20, Ephesians chapter 25, or chapter 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave Himself for it. There is only one church. And I'll never apologize for that. There's only one church, and its pattern is set forth in the Scriptures, and we best humble ourselves and simply be that church, or be in that church. You see, but people want to believe the lie. It doesn't really matter. We can do whatever we want to. I wrote an article about 2 weeks ago and put it in the paper, and I sent it to Brother David. And it was about the Presbyterian Church USA in Louisville, Kentucky. A couple of weeks ago, they had an election and decided to vote practicing homosexuals can be ordained as ministers, whether it be male or female. And it was a big stir in Louisville, and it was all over the paper, and I decided, well, I was going to address that. And entitled it Religion and Morality by Popular Vote. And that's basically, that's all that was. They're voting their religion by popular vote. They're voting their morality by popular vote. They said they wanted to do this long ago, but people wouldn't accept it, so they have to wait till the right time to do it. Well, if you think about it, that's exactly what those men did when they introduced instrumental music in the church. Just wait till the right time to do it. Just, slowly over a period of time, sow this type of seed so people will accept it. Well, I came to the conclusion that God has already voted, and He voted that homosexuals are not going to go to heaven. I took it to the editor of the paper, and I said, now here it is. I said, now it's preaching against homosexuality. And I said, I'm going to stand behind it. And I said, I do know that you might get some flack from it. And he read it, or she read it, and she said, well, we're going to publish it. And I got a lot of encouraging words about that article. There's still a lot that haven't bowed the knee to homosexuals today in our society. We just have to stand firm and teach the truth. The only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes through the Father except by me. And yet man says, well, you go by Muhammad, you can go by Buddha. Or if you get into New Age, it doesn't make any difference because you're already God anyway. And yet there's only one way to go to heaven. People deny the truth. The importance of baptism. In our communities up home, it's primarily Baptists and Catholics. And the Baptists are really rabid about this thing about baptism. And I ran an article in the paper, and I just said, well, what does the Bible say about baptism? And I just cut and pasted Acts 2:38, 1 Peter chapter 3:21, Acts 22:16, and some others. And I said, that's what the Bible says. That settles it. Well, a few weeks later, I was getting my hair cut, and the Baptist that was cutting my hair, he says, I don't think we Baptists emphasize baptism enough. I wonder where he got that idea. I knew he read my article. He said, baptism, without it we are lost, and yet today the world says, no, that's not important. Well, the sin of sectarianism. In the Gospel of John, in John chapter 17 and verse 21, Jesus said that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. You see. Well, we think about God sees and hears everything. And Michael's up here, but you all started about 3 minutes late. Am I right there, Brother Stallings?
I believe so.
Yes, he come up here and says they're using your time. Well, one may lie to a fellow man. One may lie to a fellow man. One may lie to yourself. But all who speak lies refuse to understand the power of God, to see, to hear, to know all things. For the Bible says, for by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 37. Truth. Those who love God will cherish it. Do you cherish truth? I hope we all do. Those who love God will exhibit moral character and understand its importance. When you think about every subject that's in this lecture series, truth would eliminate them all. Eliminates homosexuals. Eliminates abortion. Eliminates euthanasia. All you have to do is go to the truth that's set forth in the Scriptures. Those who want to go to heaven will wear it boldly. And God has set the standard for right and wrong. Therefore, all must maintain that standard. All who refuse to obey God are only lying to themselves. And perhaps that is the most difficult lie to overcome in seeking truth. Sometimes we become our own worst enemy. We lie to ourselves. And those that say, well, no, I can go to heaven without being a member of any church. I can go to heaven without being baptized. I can go to heaven. I can live as a homosexual. I can go to heaven and I can practice any immorality that I want. Well, they're just lying to themselves. They're just lying to themselves. Well, truth will set one free from sin. John 8, verse 32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Lying is never justifiable in the eyes of God. It's just not. Well, I guess I better quit. We've got too many people meditating.